Hello, my name's Colin Crithers, and I'm a student reporter and broadcaster at the University of Iowa. As a journalist, my job is to tell stories, while also balancing everything else going on in my life as a student. But no one tells our stories. So, my goal is to tell the stories of the student journalists, broadcasters, and storytellers all across the country. Let's walk the student beat. Welcome in. Today, we're walking the student beat with Jack Rachinsky of Penn State. Jack, how are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well myself. Thanks for joining me here today. Jack, if you don't mind, just giving yourself a little background for the viewers, the listeners, to learn a little bit more about you and this journalistic outlets you work with.
Yeah, so I'm a junior, a third year at Penn State. My primary role is a sports director for CommRadio, which is our student-run internet radio station here at Penn State. We cover pretty much anything on campus that has a field, court, ice, pitch, whatever. We're calling games, doing it all. I announced for Big Ten Plus as well because our partnership with Big Ten Plus is through our station. I'm also involved on campus with After the Whistle, which is a high school sports show. So we cover local high school football in the fall in Central PA, and then do in the winter and spring basketball, wrestling, soccer, or not soccer, but lacrosse. We even did bocce last year, which was really interesting.
Baji sounds fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It's kind of upstart in Central PA, but that was really cool to have a new sport to cover like that, and then baseball and softball as well in the springtime. I'm also with Penn State Sports Night, which is part of Penn State Network Television. So that's more of kind of having like a sports panel style show where we talk about pro sports, and then bi-weekly show. Part of that's called Dear Old State Update, which the PSN TV has beat reporters that are around the campus and covering sports. So we get to host segments. I'm also a football insider for CommRadio. So I cover the football team. I write for the football team, write about the football team for the station. So we run some live shows with that as well. So Happy Valley Huddle is live on our airwaves Tuesday, Thursday from 1 to 2. And that covers the football beat. And then CommRadio Insider Live is Thursday from 3 to 4. And that's kind of the general insider show where we bring on insiders and they talk about their respective sports. I also host another show called the Motorsports Minute. I'm a massive auto racing fan. So I kind of update that. That's Tuesdays from 3 to 3:30, updating everyone on the sports world, the motorsports world. I also am part of the John Curley Center for Sports Journalism here at Penn State. So that's a lot of writing and a lot of more big journalistic projects. I was down my freshman year at the 24 Hours of Daytona. I did a story on that. Covered the Little League World Series last year, and then kind of one of my biggest things I've done at Penn State was going to the Paris Paralympics last year and writing with the Associated Press, like being the AP writers for the Paralympics and covering the stories of Team USA and beyond, which was so cool. And this past summer, I was helping out with the local summer baseball league, the Metropolitan Collegiate Baseball League, which is in northern New Jersey in Bergen County. I was a track announcer for Airport Speedway in Newcastle, Delaware, so keeping up the racing announcing going. And then I was also a marketing and content intern for ESPN Radio New York, which was so cool to do. So I've done a lot, but yeah, it's a lot. People say it's a competitive industry, and it is. But really nothing that I've done has ever deterred me from wanting to do anything else with my life. So it's been a blast.
At least it's a lot of fun, right?
Yes.
Doing all this stuff. And we're going to have a lot of fun with this as we have plenty to get into. Before we dive into all of your experiences, I want to ask you first, what was it that drew you into wanting to do sports journalism?
I mean, I think it was, I always loved sports. I mean, so many formative childhood memories. That's probably for all of us is you watch sports with your dad, with your family, you have you have great bonds over that. I mean, I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan myself. One of my first hazy memories is the Steelers winning Super Bowl 43. I was 4 years old at the time. Really enjoyed that. And my little kid pipe dream is like, I'm going to be a professional athlete, as we all do. I don't have the build for it, 5'9", 160, not exactly screaming a D1 quarterback, let's just say that. But as a big racing fan, I always wanted to be like a race car driver. Parents don't have the heart to tell a 6-year-old yet that you don't have the funds to go professional go-karting or whatever. And funnily enough, it was summer going into the fifth grade. I'm from New Jersey, and Pocono Raceway was an hour and a half away. So I went to an IndyCar race at Pocono, and a driver died. Justin Wilson was killed in an accident in the 2015 ABC Supply 500 at Pocono, and that kind of like really like right there just snapped me out of like a little kid like delusion that like yeah, this is like people are putting their lives on the line. Like, do I really want to do this with my life? And I was sitting there in the parking lot, tons of traffic, waiting to get out, and a golf cart whizzes by me, my two grandfathers, and my dad who went to the race. And it was Lee Diffie, who was the lead play-by-play announcer for IndyCar at the time, with his two analysts. And that kind of sparked something going in me that, like, you don't have to be an athlete to be involved in sports. And I really grew up, never had a fear of public speaking. Like people talk about like, oh, what's their number one fear? Speaking in front of a class. I never had that. I loved giving presentations. I loved doing all that. I loved answering questions, just even on any old topic from the teacher or whatever. So that kind of got the ball rolling. I think my first true announcing was in eighth grade. We did a student faculty volleyball game, and they had me do like the player intros, and I did like the morning announcements over the PA system in middle school, and then in high school, we had a few opportunities to do some stuff with kind of the basketball team we had. We halfway through my time in high school, we installed a camera system that I was able to utilize and kind of grow a school broadcasting club. And then from there, it's kind of like hit the ground running. Why not keep it going? And then coming to Penn State and doing everything here is really taking it to the next level.
Yeah, and I got to take a time out before we continue with this next topic of, you said you're a Steelers fan, right?
Yes.
Oh no, I'm a Bengals fan. I'm a Bengals fan. Putting that divide.
All right, divided house right here.
Exactly what it is.
Yeah.
There's some poor memories of back. Like we've got guys here.
I don't want to bring up too many bad memories, but the 2015 AFC wildcard game, the first game my parents ever let me stay up for. And Landry Jones throws the pick to Vontaze Burfict. I walk upstairs because I'm like, game's over. I realize I forgot something downstairs. I go back down. I'm like, Dad, why do the Steelers have the ball? He's like, you won't believe just what happened. I know that probably is still very painful, but yeah, that's formative childhood memories right there.
No, that's a cool moment on that because it was funny on the Cincinnati side of it. I was at like a friend's house and there was a bunch of people over for that game. And I remember, I think for at least 3 days, Cincinnati was dead quiet after the Germany.
I can imagine.
Oh yeah, no, it was bad. It was kind of funny now, but like it was bad.
Yeah.
But you talk about all the experiences. You kind of had an idea of what maybe you wanted to do, but talk to me about picking out Penn State as a school you wanted to go to. What brought you in to Penn State?
It was funny enough because it was kind of on a whim. I went to a private high school in New York City, Regis High School, and there are a lot of a high achievers. Everyone's kind of gunning for the Ivy Leagues and whatnot. And I kind of wanted to join in on that party. So I kind of had my aspirations like really high in that. Not saying that Penn State is not a great school, but just really wasn't in my mind. Funny enough, my dad went to West Virginia, my mom went to Pitt. So like Penn State, yeah, I know, yeah. So that's always fun. Now that was a fun conversation on Saturday for sure.
I could bet. My family's from West Virginia, so I get that whole thing completely.
Yeah. So off of that, my mom, one of her really close friends, went to Penn State and really enjoyed it. And it was like October of my senior year in high school, and she was just like, "Let's go like look at Penn State for fun." And I was like, "Okay, why not? Like what couldn't hurt." And it was like the perfect fall day. Like trees are, all the pretty colors. Campus is active. Everybody is walking to their class. Like it was definitely that very like stereotypical college environment. I have a very funny story. My freshman year, I knew an exchange student from New Zealand who went to the University of Melbourne. And I literally asked her, like, why Penn State? And she said, I went to my advisor and said, give me the most stereotypical American college and send me there. And they landed on Penn State. And it checks out. It checks the boxes. But touring the new media center in our Willard building, which is only about 4 or 5 years old at this point, and seeing that like you're walking like it seems like an actual newsroom, an actual radio station studio, and all that stuff. And I kind of really enjoyed that atmosphere. And then admission it wasn't my first choice. Admissions fell the way that it did, Penn State was the highest of the schools I got into. So kind of went on that path, and I've really fallen in love and now really have no regrets, which is what you want out of a school you pick.
Absolutely. And it seems like it's paid off pretty well for you,
It has,
especially
yeah.
when you talk about everything you've done. And I want to start off with Penn State Radio Com. I mean, Football Insider, director there as well. Just for those that are listening that might not understand, talk about what that is and what you specifically are doing there.
Yeah, so it's directing our schedule. So we're each put in charge of a schedule, it's usually one fall, one winter, one spring. So currently for me at the moment, I run our women's volleyball schedule, which of course Penn State National Championship. That's a very fun schedule to be a part of. So that's kind of we're sending out, signups at the beginning of the year, like, hey, who wants to join a schedule? Who wants to be a producer? Who wants to be an insider and cover the team? And putting that all together, making sure, our credentials are all, squared away. We do weekly meetings where we have articles running about pro sports. We do podcasts. We do live shows based on kind of what's going on in the sports world, whether it's college, whether it's pro. We can pitch ideas. So it's kind of an active engagement with our community here at CommRadio. And then it's going out to games, making sure everyone's squared away. If people have questions, people have issues, they know that I'm a person they can call and have a trustworthy name that they can reach out to. And then beyond that, at our level, for some of the more experienced announcers, it's working with Big Ten Plus, working with athletics, and making sure that everything runs well. So it's really fun to kind of peel the curtain back and see how it all goes down on a day-to-day basis.
Talk to me about your relationship with that and Big Ten Plus. How exactly does that work?
So CommRadio, we have our own schedule. So we are, the student radio station, for football, basketball, hockey, baseball, wrestling. There are like actual radio teams of guys like Steve Jones has been doing, Penn State football for 40 something years now. And, Brian Tripp does hockey and baseball, and he's one of the rising names here on campus. But we supply another student radio thing. So some sports like softball and volleyball, we are the primary radio voice of those things. So we're a part of those schedules. And then for any games that aren't on linear Fox Sports Big Ten network at the football level, it's Fox and NBC and CBS, where we're supplying those announcers. So it's guys that have made a name for themselves in terms of their broadcasting abilities, or in terms of sports that they enjoy. So we're trying to make it a bit more, specialized for kind of like you're doing one sport for Big Ten Plus kind of per year or per semester. So for me, I have really fallen in love with the sport of collegiate volleyball and follow it at a high level. So I've been involved with a ton of the Big Ten Plus calls, and that's really cool because if someone's tuning into that game, you're the voice they're hearing. It's kind of like as much as I enjoy the aspects of journalism, there is a little bit of self-pride in that, of course, where I see some social media posts and I'm like, that's my voice, guys. Look at me. One of the highlights for me was for postseason play that's on campus. You have an opportunity with ESPN Plus as well because they cover a lot of collegiate postseason matches. So Penn State, being the one seed in the volleyball tournament, got to host all the way up to the Elite Eight in their bracket. And UNC and Yale was a game that was a part of the bracket in the round of 64, and that game was on ESPN Plus. So I got to call it. Well, ESPN, linear ESPN, was doing a show called The Fifth Set, which was kind of like Red Zone style, but for the volleyball tournament. And apparently I got a text from a friend's dad that was like, hey, you guys were just on The Fifth Set. Like, they cut to your game. And I was like, pitch me, please. What is going on? And yeah, with that, we've had guys where it's like, let's go to Sports Center top 10, and it's some guy doing this, crazy play, and it's your voice in the background, or it's stuff like that, getting your name out there, and then developing relationships and making connections at that higher level, and also being able to tell a story through a TV lens where you have a team behind you. At CommRadio, as much as I love making charts and stuff, to have a team behind you in the athletic department here at Penn State is a whole nother level. And I think that's a big thing, a drawing part for Penn State and a ton of schools in the Big Ten. And of course, you can relate to this. Is no matter what you're doing stuff at right into college that is getting national attention. That's getting stuff that is talked about in the national conversation. I mean, go look at Penn State football, talk about Abdul Carter and Tyler Warren last year. And I'm like, I'm writing that for my beat, but that's what the entire country's talking about. So it really develops a maturity and a level of professionalism very early on. And that's something that's truly invaluable. I think that at a program, like a Penn State, or you're in the Power Four competition, a Power Four school.
Yeah, it's one of the things I think about when I think of Penn State. I think of how good the athletics are there, and it's got to be a cool thing to cover or call games with just Penn State athletics, especially with football.
Yeah, exactly. Just in the Big Ten in general. I mean, you look at football, we've come up short the past 2 years, but the national champions, Michigan and Ohio State, have walked through our stadium. Juju Watkins is coming for USC women's basketball. Like the talent that, even if it's not on your team, the talent that's just coming through in the competition that Penn State is playing. I mean, just to get to say, I called this person in college is like something you'll hold on for the rest of your life.
Absolutely it is. And I want to ask about being a football insider as well, because I think some people hear about the professional side of it a little to a certain degree, but what's it entailed to be a football insider as a student journalist?
I think it's you're doing a lot of the same things. I think it's great to have a pulse of someone that lives and breathes the sport on campus. And for us, we get a weekly media schedule, so it's a bye week, so a little bit different here for Penn State this week. But Monday at noon, we're in Beaver Stadium because James Franklin's got a press conference. So I'm going to be there. I'm tweeting out from our CommRadio account. Here's some of the quotes he had. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we have player or coaches Zoom. So whether that's Drew Aller, Nick Singleton, whether that's Andy Kolnicki or Jim Knowles on a assistant side of things. Wednesday night is our open practice, so the media gets to go for 15 minutes, see what's going on, who's practicing, what drills are they running, and then we get time with James Franklin afterwards, and usually 4 or 5 players, and then we're writing articles on that. So we do a preview article, review article. You write a gamer, write a cider. Kind of articles on stuff you pick up on. Something I've been doing is doing more like history-based stuff. Because I love kind of looking back through college football history. I did an article last year because Penn State played Oregon, who was number 1 in the country at the time. How many times has Penn State played the AP number 1 team? How many times have they played a claimed national champion in the entire history of college football? We played Villanova this week, so I did an article. How many Pennsylvania programs has Penn State played in its 139 years of history? And then I picked the 3 strangest because early college football has the weirdest history. So I got to learn about the fact that there was a training camp in Allentown during World War I to train ambulance drivers to fight on the Western Front. And it turned out that people at the training camp, 15 of them were former collegiate All-Americans. So they formed a mercenary squad football team and played Penn State, Georgetown, and Fordham that year as a part of those schools' schedules. So it's crazy the stuff that you learn, and kind of it's great to have a pulse on what's going on and interacting with real people in the media landscape. And a lot of people have gone on to write for the outlets that you're working alongside, whether that's The Athletic, whether that's USA Today or some of the 24/7 sports, or even working with the broadcasting crews that come in, whether that's if College Game Day comes to town, or CBS, Fox, if they need runners, if they need things. Working alongside that and getting your name out there is very huge. So it's a lot of the same responsibilities as someone in the media world. You're covering the team. You're doing a lot of what they're doing. But at the football level, there's this expectation that you're constantly producing content, that you're constantly on top of things. So that really steps up your game, and it's great real world experience right off the bat.
Absolutely, it is. It's probably some of the best experience you can get, especially while in college with football, especially the Big Ten thing you hit on perfectly. And I want to put this part out there. I heard your call of the Penn State Villanova game and the interception in that game as well. I'll
Yes.
give you some kudos for that. That
Thank
sounded
you.
really good. But we talked about Big Ten Plus a little bit and just broadcasting games. And I want to give you a moment to kind of highlight the benefit of what Student U is and like just what it does for students on Big Ten campuses.
I mean, it's a great opportunity because I think back to that thing, like the real world experience. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities you can do, but when you are the primary outlet that people are going to go to, if I'm going to watch the Penn State volleyball game on Big Ten Plus because they're playing the Big Ten team and it's not on linear TV, I'm clicking that on, and that's my voice. That's our production, behind the scenes, working replay, working graphics, looking camera. So you have stuff on air and behind the scenes that you can utilize. And for me, it's really valuable to learn how to tell a story, to up your professionalism, knowing that it's not just a student radio broadcast, and not to knock it, but like you have so much greater of an outreach because that's the people you're going to primarily reach. So that's a huge thing, and kudos to Big Ten and Student U for the level of talent that you get to see. That I get to say I've called the national championship team, and it's I don't know what else to say. It's just a great opportunity across the board, no matter what you want to do. If you want to work in the sports world, it's a tremendous opportunity to get reps, to connect with people that are already in the industry, to connect with coaches. Because if you say, that saying, hey, I'm with TV, it's a very powerful thing. Again, I've been able to sit on production meetings, been able to talk with coaches to kind of form bonds that way. And that really opens up your avenue for telling stories and giving the fans information that you're not going to find in game notes. You're not going to find on a box score. That only you're going to realize that from you sticking your neck out and talking with these people that are in the industry and around what you cover.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite thing about like before a game on Big Ten Plus, going down and talking to some of the coaches. Like we've got a few at Iowa that are like really outgoing, really nice to talk
Of
to.
course.
Give us whatever, like almost whatever. Because like I remember last year for field hockey, head coach Lisa Salucci, and it was the final day of the season, trying to figure out seating. Iowa didn't have as good of a field hockey season, and I go down there, and I think it was like Penn State and Maryland playing. I don't remember the exact game, but I asked her because it was to help determine seating, and I'm like, "Do you want to know the score of this?" Assuming the answer would be no, she's like, no, please give it to me. And then I'll just like talk to you guys about whatever possible so you can talk about it on the broadcast. So we kind of did like almost an exchange, a trade off of information. But that's probably some of my favorite bits and pieces to share on a broadcast.
It is because I can go and look at for volleyball. Oh, someone's had a career season high of 10 kills against whatever school, but I'm not going to be able to tell you that the UNC and Yale head coaches were both assistants at Penn State at the same time, and the Yale's coach's husband was on the basketball staff, and they were on an away game, and she was going to have her first child. So the UNC head coach, who was also an assistant at the time, drove her to the hospital, and that was a story we did on the broadcast. Like you never know that from not talking to these people. And I'll even shout out on the men's volleyball side, our head coach Mark Pavlik, two-time national champion, where one day we were just with media and we were doing some Big Ten Plus stuff, and media wrapped up, and it was me and my fellow broadcaster that was doing a game upcoming, I believe, that weekend. And he literally sat with us for 2 hours and broke down film with us and said, here's how you call volleyball. This is how I like a broadcast to be run in terms of what are you hitting on, what are you emphasizing. And I mean, that's the experience level that you get with Big Ten Plus. I can't recommend it enough. If you want to get involved and can find a way to do it, 100% do it.
That's a really, yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. 100% something to do if you're a student on a Big Ten campus, but also that's a really cool spot there. But getting down to break down a film with a coach. I mean, I don't even think most people get that experience, even with
Absolutely
Big Ten
not.
Plus. No, it's probably a rarity. Maybe even just a few coaches, just even at Penn State, maybe.
Yeah, it definitely depends on the coach, and of course, the level of access. Like, I'm not gonna be able to text James Franklin and be like, "Hey, you wanna chat for a bit?" Like, that's not how it works. But for some of the I don't want to say lower level because that's unfair to them. But some of the teams that don't get as much coverage, you absolutely take advantage of that because you'll find I didn't think coming into Penn State that I was going to be a huge collegiate volleyball fan, and now I follow I follow, what's going on in the world of volleyball, even if it's not Penn State, because, I've grown to appreciate the sport. So I think that's another thing. Like if you're a freshman on campus, go to as much as you can. Even if you're not a freshman, like I went the NCAA fencing tournament was here in State College last spring. I went because I was like, why not? It's sports. It's something I haven't seen before. Let's have fun with it. Let's see, what it's like. And I mean, I've gone to fencing, I've gone to swimming and diving. I mean, I check out Club Equestrian if I had the time to. It's really, a real endless world of possibilities.
That's the hard part, is finding time for everything, isn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly.
Everything
That's
in.
why when you're a freshman and you're not, involved in a million things yet, take advantage.
Absolutely. Take advantage of the time you have. I wish I would I took advantage of it pretty well, but I wish I would have taken more. Like I would have done a little bit more, especially that freshman year when I had that time. But maybe between whether it's student radio or Big Ten Plus, do you maybe have a favorite game that you've called? Maybe it is that UNC Yale volleyball game, but is there a game that's been your favorite?
Ooh, this is tough. This is
Probably
really
a lot to go through.
I would say I'd say favorite game, maybe not my favorite call ever. Two come to mind. Was Penn State taking down Nebraska in the regular season to claim to be co-Big Ten champions. To have that environment where I like threw my voice out that night because the rec call was so loud. I literally couldn't hear myself in my headset. And like just the environment there was just unreal. And then being able to call the whiteout last year against Washington for CommRadio. I mean, there's no joke. When Zombie Nation plays and that team runs out there, the press box literally shakes. And I'm like, this thing's coming down. No better way to go, I guess. But yeah, I think those are two of my favorite like atmospheres and games. I would say this year, just the games that I've been able to call, because I feel like I've had 2 years of college play-by-play experience under my belt, and I've seen the hard work and the reps pay off, where I feel so much more comfortable calling games, more comfortable throwing in stats and storylines. The game's really slowed down, so yeah, I really this year I've been able to say that like my best call has been my last one, which is what you want as a broadcaster, and that's So I'd say this year I've had the most fun and most satisfaction calling games, but I'd say Nebraska volleyball, Washington football last year were probably my two favorite, just straight up games to be a part of.
A whiteout sounds sick. I mean, it's a bucket list item for me. I have to admit, that's been on my bucket list. I would love to be at a whiteout.
It is so worth it. I'm so excited that 2 weeks it's going to be against Oregon, a kind of a true whiteout again, like best team, best matchup, best home matchup. Is going to be actually checking off a one bucket list. I will be in your neck of the woods October 18th. So I am coming out to Kinnick, calling that game for CommRadio. So I'm very excited to see the Hawkeye atmosphere.
Hey, let me know when you're in. We'll meet up and everything. But
100%.
Hawkeye atmosphere is fun. I mean,
Yes.
I know it's not a whiteout, but that place gets rocking pretty well.
Yeah, everyone talks about the big house, the shoe, Happy Valley. Kinnick's always in that 1A category. It's a very underrated environment.
It's great, especially like being there, because I had always like being from Cincinnati. I'm not too close, and I watch it on TV, and I'm like, okay, it looks pretty cool. But being there, you really understand, like, okay, yeah, this place gets really loud. Like I've done both, like covered games on the field, been up in the press box, and being on the field for some of those games. Like I was covering the Cyhawk game with Iowa State at Kinnick last year, and I don't think I could hear myself on the field at one point. No, it's a very great environment. So hopefully you'll be pretty impressed with it, especially I think with the wave too, though, is something.
Oh, yes.
Awesome. The wave is, I mean, it still gets me every time. It's a good view from the press box too.
Awesome. Can't wait.
It'll be a great one. Excited to hopefully, yeah, excited for when you come out here and everything. That'll be an exciting game too. I know what the prospects of that game are. I know it's not likely for Iowa, but I think it's so fun to see. Like again,
there's been a lot of talk. There are a lot of Penn State fans have some PTSD about Kinnick Stadium. So it's everyone's kind of circling it as, I don't want to say trap game, but a game that I think it could be really sneaky good.
Be careful. It's one you want to be careful with. You don't want to pass by.
Of course.
Because, I mean, Iowa still has a solid defense and everything. They're supposed to have an improved offense. So, I mean, but Penn State also is that good. Penn State football is well, they're number two in the country for a reason. Like they're good.
for sure.
But we talked earlier towards the top of the show about one of the shows that you participate in after the whistle, and that just that's a TV style show, correct?
Yes.
So talk to me about because that's you're covering high school sports and everything. It's kind of how that intertwines with everything else you do, how it's different from the other jobs that you have.
I think it's interesting because it's we're covering high school sports in the area, so I that doesn't get as much coverage as a Penn State football. So you're providing a platform where local high school kids and their families can see their highlights. So covering games from around the area, which is a lot of fun, especially in the fall, because my school didn't have football. I never got to experience Friday Night Lights as a high schooler. So to go out to games, whether that's State College or Altoona or wherever else we're at, and there's a packed house and a student section that's rocking, that for me was kind of like reliving a high school days I never had. So that was like a little bit personal for me. But the quick turnaround of you're going out to games, 7 o'clock kickoff, you got to film, you got to come back, you got to edit your package, and you got to get it on by 11:30 p.m. And that's like there's an adrenaline rush with that, getting ready, like the kind of that beautiful chaos of it is a lot of fun. And then, in the spring, a lot of it is kind of more long form stuff. We're doing longer stories. It's kind of a bit more laid back, but we're covering a lot more. Of course, a big thing in Central PA, wrestling is king. So we have a lot of guys that are big wrestling fans that go cover some of the best prospects in the world that are coming out of our area. So whether that I can't even think of the names, but some of like the top guys that are thinking about their commits, like Bo Bassett or Jax Forrest or guys like that. And we had our guys that are freshmen and sophomores in college that are going to get one-on-one interviews with him. My favorite moment though was going back to the Paris Paralympics. We ran a segment in the fall about Penn State restarting their adaptive athletics program. So we talked with a few guys that were kind of the first scholarship athletes to come out of that in the revamped program. So we actually did a live shot from Paris for the show. So my colleague and I, who's a fellow football insider, was on the Paris trip with us. We got up because the show is 11:30, mind you, Eastern time. So it's 6 hours ahead. So we're having to get up at like 4:30 in the morning. We walk about a mile to the Arc de Triomphe and do a live shot from there. And that is still, I think, the longest live shot in our college's history. So that was kind of, to be a part of that was really cool. But again, from even my time as a freshman to see that show grow from just, hey, we're putting highlights together, I don't want to say running through the motions, but very kind of bare bones, to having a huge operation where we're able to do fun stuff, to try new things, to do different angles, to run a spring show and have those stories told. It just opens up a whole world of opportunity where, if you're thinking about doing something, most likely than not, they're probably going to say yes to it. And that's kind of the cool thing that I really loved about how I've had so many ideas where I'm just like, wonder if we could do this. And then I went out and did it. So yeah, that's a great part of what After the Whistle is. And I think it's one of my favorite clubs on campus.
So I was going to ask about it. So it is a true club and everything on campus.
It is. So yeah, it's all student run. We have three faculty advisors that kind of oversee all the operations, but it's the students driving out to games, the students filming and editing packages, the students producing and directing the show, making sure it goes live on the Bellow Student Media YouTube page, shameless plug. So all that it runs Friday night at 11:30 on the East Coast. It's really really cool to see it all run by students pretty much.
And don't worry about the shameless plug. Hey, we're gonna plug a lot more. Don't worry.
Of course.
I gotta imagine like at first like the Paris live shot is just stunning to me. Like sure, maybe waking up at 4:30 feels a little uncomfortable, but looking back at that, there are no regrets. That's got to be one of the coolest things you look back on.
It really is. I think when you kind of, as a freshman, when I'm entering all these clubs and getting really involved, and it's hard to take. It's easy to take for granted what you're doing. It's easy to say that you have a really privileged opportunity to be out calling games at such a high level and being involved in knowing so many people. And I definitely was in that, late freshman year, kind of just like just trying to get to the next call, to the next article. Like it's a lot. It takes a toll, definitely, when you're trying to balance that with a social life and schoolwork and all that. But the first day we got there, it took us 48 hours to get to Paris because we had multiple flight delays and cancellations. We got rerouted to Dublin at one point. Crazy travel plans. But we made it to Paris, and our first night we were there, we were covering track and field. And I walk into the Stade de France and I perch up at my media table. And that's when it kind of all came flooding back like, whoa, like this is what I do. And it's so cool. The Paris trip is probably the craziest, but most fun week and a half I've had so far.
It's got to be pretty hard to top that.
It will be very hard to top that, but the fingers crossed that something does top that because you can't be peaking already.
No, absolutely. Something will top it. Don't worry. Something absolutely will top it. Maybe Kinnick Stadium. No, I'm kidding. Eh, Kinnick Stadium, Paralympics. Maybe.
Say Iowa's the Paris of the North America. I don't know. Maybe.
I'll take it. You know what I'm coining? I'm gonna say you coined it. I'm gonna use that on our next show. We record.
Please do.
We have a show called Before the Kickoff. It's our weekly like pregame football segment that I co-host with Elise Scan. Shout out to Elise. But I'll find a way either on this show or maybe I'll wait for the Penn State week. And I'll use it for that. Maybe I'll wait for Penn State and I'll use it on the show.
All right.
Here's some North America.
Royalty free, by the way. Please use it.
Okay, I got you. I'll still give you a shout and everything. Don't worry.
Appreciate it.
But because you mentioned like kind of the balance of things, and I want to get into that a little bit more, but I need to touch on this first, the whole wrestling thing. What's up with taking the whole thing away from Iowa at this point? You're taking away all the attention.
I don't know. I'm not a wrestling fan. That's not my wheelhouse. But I don't know what it is. Cale Sanderson, he's insane at what he's able to do and recruit and train these guys, at a young age, and get them to the point where it's a fight for second. Is really like I'm even as someone that isn't a wrestling fan, when they have the BJC duel every year, when they pack the basketball arena. The environment is insane. I wish Gabe Arnold, held up on his word and did wrestle Carter Sirachi, but that's not my call.
I did too, because I mean,
you can't just say your head is mine and then don't play. I'm sorry.
I know. Like, okay, here's the funny part with that. I'll share it anyways. But obviously, he said that, and they didn't wrestle. And the next week, I am doing sideline for I think it's Iowa versus Northwestern men's wrestling on Big Ten Plus. And I talked to our SID beforehand. I'm like, all right, am I able to talk to players after they're like they wrestle and everything? They're like, yes, you can talk to everyone except Gabe Arnold, aka don't send any more bulletin board material. Was the whole thing that's exactly what he sent out, and then he didn't wrestle. I don't know why.
Yeah. I wouldn't be mad. I'm just saying, like, if you're gonna say something like that to one of the best wrestlers of our generation, then deliver on your word.
You got to go out there and at least give him a battle or something.
I agree.
I wish that would have happened. I really did. Like, and the other thing is, like, I'm not even the biggest wrestling fan either. I just know how massive it is here in Iowa. And the first, like, I've gotten to know enough of it where I can cover it pretty well. And the first wrestling match I covered here at Iowa was Iowa Penn State at Carver Hawkeye Arena. So I step in, and the best way I can describe this to people, because Carver Hawkeye Arena, like, how the big house is set up to where you just go straight down. That's Carver Hawkeye. You walk into the top of it and it goes straight down. So all the noise comes down over top of you, and it's the way it's built, the noise just rattles off of everything. Mm-hmm. So the way I describe it is like you put in AirPods, like a YouTube video of the loudest crowd noise you can get, turn it up all the way, and then you still need a few more decibels before you reach what we were. Because I could not hear the person that was sitting next to me at all while I'm covering this on the mat. It was insane. Like, the way I think about it is like basketball, like they pack that. But if you're going to a wrestling match, you probably love wrestling. So, like, you're going to be even more excited for everything happening on the mat.
100%.
I'm assuming that's probably the same over at Penn State, too.
It is. I mean, the kind of the running gag is that the Bryce Jordan Center, it has the same ambiance as a Costco warehouse for basketball games. Uh, doesn't exactly help that the team is not exactly the best. It's funny. Penn State is great at pretty much everything but basketball. It's very funny how that works. But yeah, the biggest thing at the BJC every year is when the wrestling duel comes in. And it's just, I was one, they're like, oh, we have student tickets. I went there 75 minutes early, and like, we're sold out, go away. Like it was, you couldn't find a seat. It's unreal. The spectacle of it, of just, they shoot the fire out when the players walk out and all this. It's crazy. Even as someone that is a wrestling fan, you can just sit there and just admire. You can admire a good show.
Yes, absolutely. Wrestling, shout out to the wrestling world. I mean, they put on there's some good wrestling stuff in both of our neck of the woods. Like, especially like I was watching Iowa at Penn State last year, and the performance they show on the whole the setting, the atmosphere at Penn State, kind of blew me away. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
I
it's
like
great.
their whole set. I like the whole setup. I like the lighting. I love the fire, and I love the like the whole crowd on the like court pretty much as well.
Yeah.
That's a great look. But I mean, we mentioned earlier about balancing everything, and I want to ask you, like, all right, you've got all these jobs, but also you're a student as well. You're going to classes. You're holding a social life. How do you best balance those two worlds?
I mean, I think it's time management's a huge thing, and you'll hear about that if you're listening, you're watching, you'll know that your time management is key in anything that you do, and especially in the broadcasting world, because as much as there are the calm student stereotypes, and if you're in this industry, you will get them all the time, especially in college when you have your STEM majors, saying I have all this homework and what are you doing and what you know, it's a world that is very much outside the classroom. And a lot of stuff you're doing is not in a normal class time. It's going out. There's plenty of things I could do in state college on a Friday night, and I choose to go out to high school football games and edit packages. So it's finding that balance, and I think if you really want it, you really, really, really want it. There was I won through ESPN New York. I got to connect with Chris Carlin, who is the play-by-play radio guy for Rutgers football. And I connected with him before the internship through a family friend. And he goes, before I say anything, is there anything else you want to do in your life? Like just straight up. And I was like, no. Like there's no hint of I'll go be an accountant or an engineer or something. It was this is what I want to do. So that's balancing the time, keeping. I have a paper planner. I write down all the games I'm doing, my schedule for the week. Keep it on my phone, making sure that you have time for everything, because you'll make time. If you want to put in the effort, that's going to get you noticed. That's going to get you great opportunities, whether that's through your clubs, through the school, whatever that is, you will find time for that. I'd say, it will come eventually. I think if for like a college freshman, you might think that, am I doing college wrong if I'm not going out to, some party, or, I don't feel like I have as many friends as I need to. I learned very quickly that the people that you also work with in your comms activity are more than just LinkedIn connections. And I mean that seriously. I had that kind of worry like in my winter freshman year, like, are these really my friends? Yes, they are. We hang out outside of doing broadcasts and doing productions and doing shows, and some of my closest friends are through that. And that's not yeah, it's a cliche, but it is true, and I'm sure you can attest to that. And so many people around the country in programs like Penn State and like Iowa and whatever you do have that. So I'd say definitely trust the process. If freshman year seems chaotic, it'll take time to get used to, but you will definitely find a rhythm where you can kind of do all of it.
Any hint of the 76ers in there with the trust the process at all?
Yeah.
So are you a Sixers fan? I just got to ask.
I am not. I just hear it because there are so many more Philly guys than Pittsburgh guys. I don't have an NBA team per se. I mean,
I don't
if the
either.
Knicks or the Nets are doing well back home, I cheer for them, but I don't have any stake in one true team. I'm a Steelers and a Penguins fan. Those are kind of my two big ones.
I feel you with the NBA thing. I'll root for the Chicago Bulls, but I don't really have much of a say in that as well. But I like bringing up and sharing that, like, yeah, we might look like friends on camera or sound like friends on the radio, but no, we are all friends. And that's a nice thing that like I know I can share, and I like hearing that from others that yeah, like this is a job where I like being around the people that I'm around all the time.
Yeah, you really can't fake that. Like I think there's a level of professionalism where you might not be the best of friends or you're just knowing someone from the first time and you can put on a good professional voice and do a good production. But when you do it with someone that you're truly friends with, like that, it elevates it so much. It really does. You put trust in other people. It's a great environment to work with, knowing that what I'm doing while some of the behind the scenes stuff might be a bit tedious, it's people that I know I can crack a joke with and have great conversations with. So I would say because that was for me, like freshman year was a whirlwind in terms of just going through it all and being like, is this really worth it? With all I'm doing, like people that I know here have so much of a different dynamic between their work and social life. Like, am I doing something wrong? And that's something I was an area of doubt for me that I was very concerned about. But you learn when you really dive headfirst and get involved that it works itself out.
Absolutely, it does. And I think I want to ask you about from people on an outside perspective, they're looking for stories about, let's just say Penn State football, because it's the obvious one, like right now. And they're looking for AP stories or different professional outlets. But why should they pay attention to some student journalists and their stories with what they're doing with anything Penn State related?
I think there's something invaluable about being a student involved in a community of students, because ultimately that's what colleges are for, and covering everything on campus. Because I think that there's an opportunity, especially with some of the sports that don't get a lot of attention, where that is the primary outlet. Where you look at a volleyball, where we might get a few people, they'll pop in and whether it's covering a game that's a national game or whatever it is, but at times the only people that are there are student journalists, and that's a huge thing for me. I think that when as someone that just is a fan of college sports in general and always has been, you kind of buy a stock in because you're there, you're there. It's really what you can cover the best. So you're not thinking about, oh, what's my next opportunity? Oh, am I gonna get? I want to work up in the markets in the country or anything. It's really you're focused on your school and covering your school in the most informative and accurate light. And I think that's something truly invaluable. Even if you're not at that tip top shape of a professional level, there's something of a charm of really living and breathing the campus life, and being involved in some stuff that really isn't even tangible as well.
Absolutely. It is a nail on the head right there with that. I love the whole idea about the campus community being a community of students and you're telling the story among a community of students. I really like that point there. And I want you to take a moment to think about everything we've talked about, all of your experiences, and now think back to when you were a kid and you saw those the play-by-play analysts driving by on the golf cart next to you, and that's when it kind of sparked. What would you tell that kid after knowing everything you've done? What would you tell them if you go back in time?
Wow. I'd tell them some lottery numbers, some predictions for future championships. So maybe win a few bucks. I'm kidding. I think for 10-year-old Jack Rachinsky sitting in the back of a 2008 golden Subaru, as he was sitting in the Pocono Raceway parking lot, it is just you have no idea what you're about to get yourself into, and I mean that in the best way possible. Of the things that you are going to get involved in at such a young age and have great experience with. And I think also that it's so much more than just talking about sports. I think this is something that I've developed, especially at school, at Penn State, where anyone can go on and yell about sports. I can sit here and, you want me to talk about the Steelers Seahawks game last Sunday? Yeah, I'll give me an hour and I'll yell in the clouds about something. But you're going to school to be a broadcast journalist at the end of the day. There's something you're studying there, and there's certain values that you follow, certain codes that you follow, and a certain way that you conduct yourself. And I think that's something that you hold a standard to, and something that you really needed to think about, where it's so much more than just, hey, I get to call a game. One great advice I heard from the great Bob Wischusen was announcers announce sports because they don't want to get a real job. They do it because they love it. And while there is a kernel of truth to that I go into a call saying I love my job, there is a lot of work that goes into it, and there's so much more than just calling the game. It's telling stories, it's connecting with the community, feeling a sense of accomplishment in doing something that's going to be hard. That there's going to be times where you got to edit something, where you got to make an article, you got to come up with ideas, you got to put it in a way that is informative, it's accurate, it's presenting everything in the best possible light. Because that's another thing, when you get involved on campus, you start knowing people, and when you start knowing people, you become more conscious about what you say and what you do. Because I can I'm gonna yell the Steelers about the Steelers to my dad because that's between him and I. If I'm talking about a team on campus and I know someone on the team, I don't want to say anything that's not true. I don't want to say anything that would put them in a bad light, or say something that's completely false. So I think that for me, it's follow what you want to do. It's a great opportunity, but also at the same time, it's so much more. And that's kind of the beauty of it, that we're being trained to be storytellers, and that at the end of the day, anyone can put on this microphone and yell into the void for an hour. But it takes a special art to be creative with it, to be entertaining with it, and to do your duty as a journalist at the end of the day.
And you've kind of already done this part. And I think I still want to ask you directly, though, with all the experiences you've had, you've kind of already mentioned the trust the process, advice, and everything. But if you had one piece of advice for someone who was entering college, who wanted to get into sports journalism, you had one thing to tell them, what would be your biggest piece of advice?
So much more than just telling sports, than just talking about sports. I think I just repeat that, because there are a lot of people that do this because just, hey, talking about sports, that's great. That's not work. It is even in sports talk radio. I believe it was Evan Roberts at WFAN said this on one of his shows a couple months back, where it was, if you're sports talk radio, you gotta know what's going on in the sports world. You have to create, you have to tell the stories, you have to have points and counterpoints and know what your crazy callers are going to say. You got to counter that. You got to be in the know. There's an art to that too. So I think no matter what you do, there is an element to it, but that's where you're at school for. I'm a much better journalist than I was 2 years ago, stepping onto campus for the first time, and that's through taking classes on the equipment that I use, how to tell a story, the basic principles of journalism. All that ties into everything that you do. So I'd say yes, at the end of the day, it is a lot of fun. And those moments where you're calling games in Beaver Stadium, or your clip gets used on a Sports Center top 10 clip, like those are, you chase those highs, because those are fantastic. But also at the same time, don't lose sight of what you're doing, because people will say that anyone can do that, and that's in a sense true, but they can't do it well. They can't do it to the standards that you should be holding yourself to, in terms of living out your career as a journalist, because that shows to your potential future employers, that shows to the people around you, that if you can do everything with a sense of honesty, with dignity, with the professionalism that comes with being a journalist, then that carries, and people know you as a trustworthy source among your friends, among your colleagues at school, even the higher ups, from your professors to your advisors to people that you interact with in the real world. That goes a long way into separating someone that can yell about sports to being a sports reporter, sports broadcaster in the journalism world. And there's a huge difference to that. But as much as those restrictions are put on yourself, I wouldn't say they're restrictions, they're more guidelines you should follow as a person. It still is just as rewarding, if not more rewarding.
Yes, sir. I love the word you use there. You called it an art, and it's a challenge of the mind. I really love that point there. Before we close things out on this episode, we talked about the plugs earlier. I want to give you a chance here to plug anything and everything you possibly can for people to go take a look at, check out after listening to this.
So my Twitter is at my name, JACKRACHINSKY. If you'd like to, watch some Penn State football coverage throughout the year, and I always post like some clips from my broadcasts or broadcasts that I'm doing, whether that is CommRadio or Big Ten Plus. Shout out to Penn State CommRadio. They do a lot of tremendous work in all the sports that we cover here at Penn State. So, big kudos to them and the work that they do, because we're running around campus to every sport that gets covered. I think we did the count. We did 16 sports, which is quite a lot. So with that, with After the Whistle and Belisario Student Media, the John Curley Center for Sports Journalism at the Belisario College, all that stuff produces great work, and it's a lot of experience and a lot of coverage that is connected to the real world. Where I give the example of the Paralympics or the Little League World Series. That's not a fun side project. That is, we're working with the Associated Press to literally give the news to the people. So that sometimes that coverage is the biggest option, and that's it's an honor, it's a privilege to do that. And yeah, I'm really excited to see. It's kind of funny. I was talking with my advisor last year, and she's kind of like, "Well, now what?" And I'm like, I still got 2 years, and I feel like I've crossed everything off the bucket list. So it's about refining the craft and doing stuff, and the things here at Penn State have really allowed me to grow as a journalist, as a person, and I'm really excited for what the next chapter holds.
Absolutely. And I'll make sure the link pretty much everything I can on this as well. But again, thank you, Jack, for sparing some time for me today and joining me here on the Student Beat.
Appreciate it, Colin. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Student Beat. And go check out all the links provided for all of Jack's work. He's got a lot of really cool stuff coming up. You want to stay up to date with him, especially when he's coming over the Kinnick in Iowa City. And if you want to stay up to date with that specifically, you can also follow me on Twitter at C_Carithers33, or you can stay up to date with the podcast by following us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at The Student Beat. We just walked The Student Beat. I'll see you next week for a brand new episode.